Welcome back. So today we're going to do the second part of 8.5. This is the first example. We're going to do addition. Now, as you remember, we have to make sure that we've got a common denominator. So first thing we want to do is make sure that we factor. So you have to factor the left-hand fraction, factor the right-hand fraction. And so the left-hand fraction, again, remember, just two numbers that multiply to 4, but add to -5. And the right-hand fraction, the denominator, is a difference of squares. So when you factor that, you should end up with this. Now you look and see, okay, the first fraction has a k minus 1. The second fraction has a k minus 1. The first fraction has a k minus 4 in the denominator. The second one does not. So we definitely have to multiply the second fraction by k minus 4. Now the second fraction has a k plus 1, but the first fraction does not. So we need to multiply this first fraction by k plus 1 and the second fraction by k minus 4. So we're going to do that. Now again, remember the denominator, do not actually multiply anything out. You'll have a k minus 4, a k minus 1, and a k plus 1 on the denominator. And the numerator, you're going to have to actually distribute. Okay, so once we do that, we can write a common denominator. So the first one, we'd have 2k times k, which is 2k squared, 2k times 1, which is 2k, 3 times k, 3k, 3 times -4, -12. Okay. Combine like terms. All right. And then usually you'll have to factor the numerator as well to see if you can cancel anything out. Here's the factored form. If you notice, we've got a 2k minus 3 on top, and don't have that on the bottom. And we've got a k plus 4 on top, and we have a k minus 4 on the bottom. That doesn't work for us though, it has to be the same sign. So that's the final answer. So that is the first problem. As you can see, just a little bit more work because now we have to multiply both fractions by something to create a common denominator, and we have to factor more. Okay, so here is the next problem. So please go ahead and write that down. Now what you should notice, and this is a common trick, we've got 2m minus 3n on the first fraction denominator. The second fraction is 3n minus 2m. So what you should notice is that the sign of the second one is different, right? If the first one's negative 3m, the other one's positive. If the first one is negative, the first one is positive 2m, the second one is negative. So what we can do is this. We can multiply the second fraction, top and bottom, by -1. What that's going to do is just flip the sign, which makes our life a lot easier. So we end up with this. 3n turns into -3n. 2m turns into, -2m turns into positive 2m. And the positive n turns into a negative n. So now we've got the same denominator, so we can just actually write it out. So m minus n is equal to 2m minus 3n. Can't factor out a 2 here, can't factor out a 3, can't factor out an m or an n, so this is our final answer. So just remember, if you see two fractions and their denominators look very close with just a sign issue, multiply one of the fractions by -1. Okay, so this is just kind of a general subtraction rule, subtraction is very similar to addition. You still have to make sure that the denominators are the same. So now we'll practice subtraction. The only other thing with subtraction that's going to be a little bit tricky is you have to make sure that you distribute the negative sign to everything on the right-handed parenthesis. I'll say that again. When you're doing subtraction, you have to make sure that you distribute that subtraction sign to everything on the right-handed fraction. Okay, so here's this one. This is 5t over t minus 1 minus 5 plus t over t minus 1. So denominator is the same. That's great. Now we have to look at the top. We've got a subtraction for the 5 plus t. So we're going to have to do 5t minus 5 minus t. If you notice, I've got it right here, essentially write it out as one bar, right, one fraction, and you distribute the negative sign to the 5 and to the t. So you have 5t minus 5 minus t over t minus 1. And combine like terms, and there you go. That's your final answer. So again, this one, common denominator, great. Just make sure that you're distributing this negative sign to both terms inside the parenthesis. Okay. Again, parentheses are very useful here, so you kind of know to distribute the negative sign. Next, we've got this problem. So with this problem, again, we've got subtraction. We don't have a common denominator. So what we're going to do first is multiply the left-handed fraction by a minus 3 and the right-hand fraction by a plus 2. So we'll, again, write it out over 1. Distribute, so 6 times a is 6a, 6 times negative 3 is negative 18, and this is just going to be a plus 2 because it's multiplied by 1. You still have this negative sign. So again, when you've got this negative, you're going to have to distribute the negative to both the a and to the positive 2, like such. And so it's going to turn into negative a minus 2. From here, you're going to combine like terms. So 6a minus a is 5a, negative 18 minus 2 is negative 20. Okay. And from here, we could factor out a 5. And there's our final answer. Okay, so now you've got this one. What I'd like to do for you now, what you should do, I'm going to keep going, but you should pause this at this point in time and try out this problem on your own. And so hopefully you've paused it and tried it on your own, but when you reconvene, you'll notice again that same kind of trick. We've got an x minus 1 here and a 1 minus x here, so the signs are flipped. So all we need to do here is just multiply the right-hand fraction by negative 1. So in doing that, we'll change the sign of everything. And so we'll end up with 4x minus 3x plus 1. So all the signs flipped, and x minus 1 here. Same denominator, so we can write it all over one denominator, and we distribute. So it becomes a negative 3x and a negative 1. So 4x minus 3x is x. Right? So we end up with x minus 1 divided by x minus 1. That cancels out. Does not cancel out to 0 though, right? Any number divided by itself is 1. Okay, so that's our final answer. All right. Next, we're going to write the answer in lowest terms here. So again, I would like you to pause this part of the video and try this one out on your own. So hopefully you've paused it and now you've reconvened. And so what we need to do here, again, first thing you want to do with the denominator is factor as much as possible. So the the left-hand fraction, you can factor out an r. The right-hand fraction you're going to have to factor is going to be a r minus 5, essentially. So if you look, we've got this now. And so now you have to, again, compare. This has an r minus 5. This has an r minus 5. But this one also has another r minus 5. So what you need to do is multiply the left-hand fraction by r minus 5 again. The left-hand fraction also has an r. The right-hand fraction does not. So you need to multiply top and bottom of the second fraction by r. So now you'll have 3r and r minus 5 and 4r. And so you need to distribute, write it all over 1 essentially in a second. So this turns into 3r squared minus 15r minus 4r. So we get 3r squared minus 19r. And what you need to do from there, you can just factor out an r, and that's about it. So when you factor out an r from both, the r will go away. Okay, and so you're left with 3r minus 19 over r minus 5 squared. Okay, and that's it for that one. All right, and that's all that I have for you guys today, so please complete the homework when you get a chance, and feel free to email me with any questions. Tomorrow's lesson, I'm going to go over all the homework in detail, talking about essentially all the solutions and all the steps, just kind of recording it myself, and so you guys will be able to watch that. Please again, make sure you're submitting the homework on time and before the class actually meets. Thank you. Have a good day.